again. I'm Nancy Keener and welcome to Icon Apprentice. Thank you so much for joining me for what may be the last video. We have some detail work that we're going to be doing today. We have actually finished most of the coats on her flesh, and today what we'll be doing is we'll be giving her some eyebrows. We'll be finishing the hair. Remember, we put the first coat on of the burnt umber. We're going to be putting some burnt sienna on today to give the hair some highlights, and we'll be giving the flesh some highlights right around her eyes, especially that is where the light emanates from icons, would be the eyes and the flesh. We'll be highlighting some of her lips, her cheeks, hands. Those areas will be given a highlight. We'll be putting in her eyebrows with burnt sienna. Her pupils of her eyes will be burnt sienna, and we'll fill in the eyes, and you're going to be amazed when you see the eyes start to come out. Her personality is just going to pop for you, and you're going to be so pleased with everything. We'll do some final outlining. We'll reinstate these lines that we have on our icon on the folds of the fabric. So those will be done. We'll outline everything. And the flesh itself will be outlined with a special color that we mix up, and it's called Halo Red. And I will provide for you the ingredients for that Halo Red in the description box. So check that out. And at this time, let's pause for our prayer to write into our icon the prayers and intentions today that we have. So let's begin with the hair. We've already laid in the burnt umber portion of the hair, and so that creates our shadows for us. And I have already mixed up here some burnt sienna, and you can see how a reddish brown that looks. And what we're going to do, if you go back and refer to your color copy, you can see that we're not spreading this in absolutely, all over the hair. We're going to be creating some lines. So get creative, watch your color copy, and follow along. If you have to refer to it however many times, go right ahead. I would recommend that you start by just coming in and reinstating some of the major lines first, perhaps right around the face. So do that line first. So for Mary's eye, we've already laid in burnt sienna for the eye portion. And now we're going to take a liner brush and get just the tiniest bit of black. We're going to put that pupil in. And we just put it right in the middle. But remember, it's going to be a little flat. The lid is covering the top of it, so the bottom portion will be round, but the top portion's kind of flat. All right, so we've got the pupil in. We're going to go back, take a little bit of black, and we're going to outline the burnt sienna in black. So you're going to come on the outside and just put a line around that. See how that happened there? Which direction do you want her to look? That's the question. So we've got her, the pupils of her eye, we've got the colored part of her eye in, and so now we want to decide where she's looking. If you take a look at the color copy, she's actually looking at you. So there's a little tiny white spot, one on the corner, one on the outside corner, inner, outer, and that causes her to look toward the viewer. So we're going to take a little bit of unbleached titanium with some water. Doesn't have to be big. And what we're going to do is we're going to make like a comma. The teeniest of commas. We can always add more. So go small. This is not where you go big or go home. This is go small or go home. So we're going to come over here, and on the inside we'll pull this out. And that's going to be right next to the eye. Right next to the eye that we laid in. It's not going to be very big. We can always go back and do more. Pull that a little in. Let's go ahead and let's start putting some highlights onto Mary's hair. And so what we're going to be using there is going to be a mixture of the burnt sienna that we had laid down on top of the burnt umber, and then we're going to take a little bit of gold oxide and just place a little bit of gold oxide in there. We'll put just a little bit of water in that just to thin it out a tiny bit. And since I don't want a whole lot of this color on there, we don't want her to get orange hair, you remember, that I'm going to come back and I'm going to use a nice liner brush, and this is my Papillon. It's a 6.0, so it's very thin. And I'm just going to come in here and start adding some movement to the hair. So I'm going to start here, closest to her eye. So for the flesh enliveners, and this is just going to create like a little bit of pop for us on her face. We're going to take, I took the Flesh 2 and I added some unbleached titanium until I got a fairly whiter, very much lighter color. And then my liner brush, just taking the liner brush and pulling from that creamy consistency. And refer back to your color copy. You're going to see that there is a very small line right above the eyebrow here. Okay. I don't necessarily want to give her wings, but try not to get that too dark. Okay. She has a little tiny highlight right in here. She's going to have a highlight down the side of her nose. A little bit here on the tip of the nose and a tiny bit on the nostril. There's going to be a tiny line right up above her lip, on her chin, a little bit on her ear, and then right around her eyes. So they're like rays coming out. Okay, I think we can move on then to outlining the flesh, and then we'll be reinstating some of our lines on the robe. And don't forget, we're going to do these antique green designs. It's just a circle with little dashes on all four sides. And you can put those wherever you like. You're just going to be looking at the color copy and trying to mimic it, but you place them where you feel like you want them. And you can see I kind of did that on this little finger. I actually had it coming way out here, and I can go back and put a little bit of red in there if I want, just to cover that up. I'm just going to leave it as kind of a shadow on her robe. No one's going to know the difference. Well, except all of you watching on YouTube, of course. Silly girl. All right. Now, any flesh that's next to a garment does not get an outline. The garment itself will be outlined, not the flesh. So just remember that. And before my blacks completely, some on my plate here if I can, before it's completely dry. Yeah, there we go. Go back and get a little bit of that black. And let's put the eyelid on. And you can see that just really does define that eye. So generally, when we start to outline, sometimes the darker colors, to do the final details, we're going to reinstate with the color of the robe, the basic color. When we first laid the color in was brown matter. So to put these lines back in, we're going to use brown matter and a touch of black. And that's the general rule when you start reinstating lines, would be to take the base color that you started with and add a touch of black so that it's darker, and you're going to take and reinstate these lines. If I were to go back and use that burnt umber that we used to lay the lines down when we first did the drawing, these would be too stark. So we'll go back in and we'll gather some of our material together. The outlining then will be our brown matter, which was the darker red color underneath, plus a touch of black, and we'll reinstate these lines. For her veil, we're going to take a different color because we used white. We used the Turner's yellow, and then we used some unbleached titanium on her veil. So for the veil, when we go back and start outlining, the veil is going to be outlined with Provencial Beige and a little bit of unbleached titanium. And I'll have those colors in the description box so that you'll know what colors, what paints you need to have on hand for this. These 3 lines are going to be done with the halo red. So we'll use that when we go through and do the veil. And Turner's yellow on the wrist. These highlights right here next to her robe will be the yellow. And the cat scarlet egg, I'm going to think you don't really need a highlight on that. In the spiritual realm, we don't have direct light because all of the light is coming from within, from the spirit within. So you're not necessarily going to need to show shadows or highlights except where the eyes and the flesh meet. Here, the whole egg is just highlighted. I'm not sure that we need to do anything with that, but the outlining then of the egg would just be the red earth, just a little bit of red earth to outline our egg there. So here's our brown matter and a touch of black. You can see how dark red that's turned. So that's going to be reinstating the lines and the outline of the robe here. I went ahead and used, we did olive green for the inner robe. I just went ahead and used what we've got because it's such a nice dark color. I went ahead and did the inner robe, which is olive green. I did that with this outline color anyway, so you know. Because it's such a dark color, we can get away with that. I'm going to go back because this is actually covering her hair, so this veil outline comes over the hair and around. Until we get right here. And this is where the hair comes out over the veil. So we won't go any further than that. The only reason I put the line here on this side of the hair was because there was actually a line like a fold right next to it. Now we are going to be outlining the hair, and the hair is going to be red earth with just a tiny bit of black in it, and that's what we'll be outlining the hair with. So I've got the red earth right here. Put some down, pick up a tiny bit of black. I mean, that's all the black you're gonna need, and mix that with the red earth.